Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Party platform in 2021 promised the re-elected Liberal government would implement the Canada Disability Benefit and that, quote, this new benefit will reduce poverty amongst persons with disabilities in the same manner as the Guaranteed Income Supplement and the Canada Child Benefit. They, of course, were elected that year. In the time since, thanks to consistent pressure from the disability community to keep that promise, this government slowly put forward a bill that needed significant improvements every step of the way, including ones that my team and I secured, like requiring an application process that is without barriers and indexing the benefit to inflation. This government then told the disability community they were consulting with them, including inviting people from across the country to spend significant time completing a lengthy survey. Finally, yesterday, we get this government's proposal for the Canada Disability Benefit in Budget 2024, and it was nothing that folks with disabilities were calling for. The maximum amount, $200 a month, is far too little to actually reduce poverty levels amongst folks with disabilities. They've limited eligibility to those already receiving the incredibly burdensome application process for the disability tax credit, in contravention of the amendment I mentioned earlier calling for it to be barrier-free, and it won't even start till July 2025. The total cost is just over $1 billion a year. Now, the two programs the Liberals promised the Canada Disability Benefit would reduce poverty in the same way they did, well, the Guaranteed Income Supplement is about 15 times as much and pays out a maximum of just over $1,000 a month. And the Canada Child Benefit is 24 times as much annually and pays out a maximum of just over $600. The Canada Disability Benefit, as proposed, does little to actually help the disability community and seems to be much more about convincing non-disabled Canadians this government is helping people with disabilities than actually doing what they said they intended on doing. As a result, folks with disabilities are deeply disappointed, and that's putting it kindly. Here's a sampling of reactions from the past 24 hours I'd like to read into the record. Some of the language is quite raw, but it reflects the pain that some folks are feeling. Laura says, quote, I've never been so disappointed in something in my entire life. Mitchell, quote, this is the ultimate failure. What an atrocity. No fairness here. Cody, quote, $2,400 a year? That's not just a joke, but an outright slap in the face to the disability community. You should be ashamed of yourself. Kate, quote, this budget announcement of adding a max of $200 more a month to a select few disabled people is the most Liberal Party thing I've ever seen. Elandria, quote, so much for lifting disabled people out of poverty in Canada, they really put the nothing in nothing without us. And leading organizations who've been advocating for the benefit. Krista Carr from Inclusion Canada, quote, our disappointment cannot be overstated. This benefit was supposed to lift people with disabilities out of poverty, not merely make them marginally less poor than they already are. Samuel Ragot from La Société Québécoise de la Déficience Intellectuelle, quote, this is worse than my worst case scenario. Not only is it not enough, but using the DTC will gatekeep the benefit from so many people. My heart goes to the people living in poverty who have to keep fighting every day to survive. And last, Michelle Hewitt from Disability Without Poverty, quote, to say we are disappointed is an understatement. Yesterday's announcement on the CDB was woefully inadequate. Again, it looks to me like this government isn't even trying to do right by people with disabilities. My question, will the Parliamentary Secretary admit that the Canada Disability Benefit, as proposed yesterday, is a performative measure intended to make non-disabled Canadians think this government is doing something of substance for the disability community when they're clearly not?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you, I'll thank the member for his brilliant advocacy and for his question on behalf of persons with disabilities. He knows, as does everyone in this place, that protecting and helping the most vulnerable in our society is a fundamental Canadian principle, and it is a fundamental principle of our government. When it comes to people with disabilities, we have invested more money in the last 8 years than ever before. And I take the point, is it enough? Absolutely not. Do we need to do more? Absolutely we do. But we have made progress. In comparison, the previous Conservative governments promised and failed to deliver a National Disability Act. Our Liberal government made the Accessibility Canada Act a reality. But there is still a lot more to do. That said, Mr. Speaker, we are moving as quickly as possible on the Canada Disability Benefit. And of course, we understand that the disability community is anxious to see extra dollars in their bank accounts, but we must get it right to make the delivery of the benefit as smooth, as targeted, and as effective as possible. Budget 2024 proposes funding of $6.1 billion over 6 years, beginning in this fiscal year, 2024-25, and $1.4 billion per year ongoing for the first ever federal Canada Disability Benefit. This represents an important next step in the journey for this. I can't talk about the journey of the Canada Disability Benefit without talking about the years of relentless advocacy from the community. And I want to thank all of those who have been relentless in their advocacy as they championed the need and priorities of persons with disabilities. I encourage you to continue to engage with our government as we move forward in the next chapter. The lived experiences of persons with disabilities has been a key part of the consultation process. In the true spirit of Nothing Without Us, we engaged with persons with disabilities, stakeholders, and all Canadians on key issues. In the coming months, once we have published the draft regulations in Part 1 of the Canada Gazette, Canadians will again be invited to provide feedback. As the Honourable Member knows, the Act requires that regulations be in place by June 2025, with money flowing into bank accounts by July 2025. Let me assure all members in this House and all Canadians that we are on track to meet this timeline. This is the first federal government step up and support of persons with disabilities by creating a new and specific benefit just for them. The Budget 2024 announcement unlocks the ability to proceed with the extensive and intense behind-the-scenes work needed to deliver the CDB. We need the time to not just be focused on the developing regulations, but to build the internal infrastructure and support systems that are necessary to actually deliver the program and to allow the PTs, the provinces and territories, to adjust their policies to ensure that there are no unintended clawbacks. This is a crucial time as we carefully balance the need to strengthen our social security net while making sure government spending is able to help with everyday cost of living. We are committed to creating a better, fairer country for generations to come, but as I said, Mr. Speaker, there is more work to do. It is the next stop in the journey of building a barrier-free Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for Kitchener Centre for his question and for his ongoing excellent advocacy on this. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, we've had this conversation dozens of times in this House over the last 3 years. I've heard time and again about a need for time for the regulations, negotiations with provinces and territories, nothing without us, we need to do more. The difference now is that with this budget, their cards are on the table. There was a dollar amount in that budget, and that dollar amount was $200 a month. This government set the expectation that this benefit was meant to lift people out of poverty. And they find money for the Trans Mountain Pipeline. They find $35 billion for that. They send $18 billion to oil and gas companies that are already making tens of billions in record-breaking profits. But when it came time to step up and demonstrate that there was well-placed trust from the disability community, they were let down. And so my question to the Parliamentary Secretary is she and others going to put pressure on this government to expand what was in the budget and do better?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I really appreciate the advocacy of the member. As I've said, I myself have a nephew who has severe disabilities. And right now, in his first 5 years of life is when he needs the most support to be able to grow and to live a functioning life. I completely understand the need to ensure that the disability community has that support that they need so that they can continue to flourish and to thrive in a community that is barrier-free. And Mr. Speaker, during these past 8 years, we have invested unprecedented amounts of money to further the inclusion and the financial stability of persons with disabilities. this Canada Disability Benefit represents the largest single item in Budget 2024 of over $6 billion. This is not insignificant, Mr. Speaker, and this is the first time in Canada that there will be a federal benefit designed to specifically meet the needs of people with disabilities. And like all progressive programs that we've delivered, they are built to be enhanced and to be expanded. And I look forward to working with the member to ensure that, and with the disability community, to ensure that we are continuing to advocate for a barrier-free community for them.